happen. This is not a Christmas. This is not a Christmas song. This is not a Christmas. This is not a Christmas song. This is not a Christmas. This is not a Christmas song. This is not a Christmas. This is not a Christmas song. My neighbors compete to see who can put up more blinding lights. The kids all wish away the month cause they want presents in sight. This year had me so mad. I've been bad, got cold that is sitting under my tree. I think that my Christmas has died. This is not a Christmas. This is not a Christmas song. This is not a Christmas. This is not a Christmas song. This is not a Christmas. This is not a Christmas song. This is not a Christmas. This is not a Christmas song. When I was just a boy, Christmas brought so much joy. Couldn't wait for the presents and laughter. I couldn't sleep late at night, looking for Santa with lights. Those are the memories I still remember. Then I became a man, lost sight of who I am. But right in front of me was the answer. Cause on Christmas I feel joy, and I turn back to a boy. The answer is to stay young forever. This is not a Christmas. This is not a Christmas song. This is not a Christmas. This is not a Christmas song. This is not a Christmas. This is not a Christmas song. This is not a Christmas. This is not a Christmas song.
Hello, my good people. All right, we're going to continue where we left off yesterday. I was going to go through each of those people that Biden commuted their death sentence, the federal inmates, okay, that were on death row. The three boys you see on the front, you know, the one's Dylan Roof. I don't know the other two things. Well, I do know, but I can't remember off the top of my head. The two boys are the ones, you know, with the church, right? And the other guy was the Boston Marathon bombing. Okay, so the reason why, and I said this yesterday, but other people are talking about it, as in like people that are in the House and Congress and all that. He's doing this in spite of Trump. So what we're going to do, the families are speaking out. Instead of me going, well, I probably will at a later time. Hi, Merry Christmas, sis. How are you? I'm probably going to do it at a different time, but we're going to listen to what the families have to say, okay? The victims. You know what? I still think the families are victims. That's how I look at it. But they are angry, and I don't blame them. And Biden didn't even have the decency to call them and ask them how they feel.
Of Donna Major, who was murdered back in 2017 in a bank robbery by a career criminal whose sentence was just commuted by President Biden. I'm sorry to be talking to all three of you under these circumstances. I cannot even put myself in your position to know how difficult this would be any week, but especially Christmas week. Heather, what was your reaction when you heard the news?
Anger, absolute anger. We were told from our prosecution team on Sunday afternoon. I was actually gathered with my in-laws for our family Christmas. My sister was gathered with her in-laws, and we got the call, and I was angry. I'm still angry. I am upset that this is even happening, that one man can make this decision without even talking to the victims, without any regard for what we've been through, what we're going through. I'm completely hurt, frustrated, and angry.
So Heather, nobody gave you a heads up that this was coming from the White House?
So in May, we heard that this was a possibility. And at that point, we began writing letters to the pardon attorney. I reached out requesting an in-person meeting in DC, and we were refused. They denied our right to have our voices heard. We're victims. My mother was murdered at the hands of Brandon Hansel. They should have heard our story, and all we got was a 10-minute virtual conference, and clearly that fell on deaf ears. They did not want to hear our story.
Danny, Joe Biden, or whoever made this decision, because it is entirely unclear whether this came from him directly or his people, he's showing mercy.
Reporter, that was just a stupid remark you just made. Who knows if it came from Biden? Yeah, but Biden signed his name. Dumbass.
To your wife's killer. Was your wife shown any mercy?
She was shown no mercy at all. This man walked into the bank, never said 2 words to her, shot her 3 times in total, went and shot her coworker, Katie Skeen, as well, who was totally defenseless and unaware that anything's happening. It's just beyond me that I can't even believe that this is actually happening. Commuting of sentences like this of 37 victims, all but 3, which was certainly a political scheme.
Yep.
No, undoubtedly. Joe Biden was also told by the Pope that he should stop these executions. Now, what the Pope has to do with anything in this country, I don't know. But Joe Biden certainly has no convictions. He's a senile old man. He couldn't tie his shoes, I wouldn't think, if you could see him in person. It's absolutely disgusting.
Well, continuing his MO of the...
Oh, that's so funny. He couldn't tie his own shoes. Oh, my God. He has every right to be angry. He can say whatever he wants, and I'm going to let him, and I'm going to share it.
past 4 years, he bent to the far left, whether it is this far left Pope, which many Catholics have said about this Pope, or members of his own party. He has bent the knee to the left wing of the Democrats.
Yeah.
And that includes...
And this man here, this victim, he made a good point. Who cares what the Pope thinks? Who cares what the Pope thinks?
Squad member, Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley, who said this to the news. Listen.
The death penalty has not been proven to be a deterrent of crime. State-sanctioned murder is not justice. And today, what President Biden did demonstrated moral leadership, compassionate leadership, informed by his own faith. It has had a disparate impact on low-income people, Black people, and other marginalized persons.
Katie, when Ayanna Pressley refers to compassion, what is your response to the Congresswoman?
Oh, my God. Look at this poor girl. She's still crying. She's so, traumatized. Just think. Now, this is what happens. And Biden wasn't president when the shit went down, but each state is different. And from my understanding, what the prosecutor does, or DA, they speak with the family and ask the family if they want to go, if they have that in the state, if they want to go for death. They speak to the families. And just think, this family probably said yes, okay? And Biden, you have nothing to do with that. You're just doing this in spite. You're gross.
Compassion? I don't think that that's compassion. The fact that he didn't talk to any of us,
Yep.
the victims of this crime.
Hi, Misty.
You know, we trusted the judicial system. We sat through court. I watched my mother be murdered. I've watched images of her body laying on the ground.
Oh my God.
He does not have compassion for who? A criminal? A criminal? No, I don't agree with that. I don't agree with
Well, of course he has compassion for a criminal. Look at his son. Look at his son. Of course he does. I'm just saying. I'm being a smartass. I know it. I'm angry right along with these people because I think this was messed up. And he plans on doing more, people, so get ready for it. He said it himself.
that at all.
Heather, off the top, you mentioned Christmas celebrations that you've already tried to have. How do you get through Christmas following news like this, when you have to put on a brave face for kids for whom we really do celebrate this holiday, to watch the joy and the magic and the excitement in their eyes? How do you get through this, Heather?
Jesus, the reason for the season. We wouldn't be celebrating Christmas if it wasn't for Christ and his birth. And he is what has gotten us through this entire thing. We have leaned into Jesus. He has provided us strength and a peace that is beyond all understanding, because he's the son of peace. And I'm just so thankful for the Lord and for my faith and for my family. I have 3 small children. My sister has 1 baby. He's a year old. My brother has 2 children. My mom had 6 grandchildren, only 3 of which she met.
Oh.
Our job is to make Christmas as special and as magical as we can, and we're going to do that.
Danny, same basic question to you. How do you get through this as a grandpa, knowing that you lost the love of your life? She's never coming back, but this killer has been spared the death penalty.
These are the families that are speaking out in anger about Biden commuting those death row sentences. And hi, Misty.
Well, probably the worst thing for me through this whole thing since day one was watching my 3 children, Doug, Heather, and Katie, suffer through this. If it was just me, I'd be okay with that. I know Donna's with her Savior right now. Not because she was a good person or anything like that, but because she trusted him as Lord and Savior. As far as the grandchildren go, the few that were here with us, they probably don't have a whole lot of memory of her, but there still is a great loss in that, just knowing that they'll never get to see her, or be loved by her, or touch her, or hug her, or all that.
He does a great job of filling in.
I'm sure he does.
He's incredible.
Katie, final question to you. The exact phrase used by the White House in their release announcing these pardons and commutations is that Joe Biden is committed to a fair and effective justice system. Oh. Katie, what about this is fair to your family?
None of it, because we didn't commit that crime. Brandon Council did. He made that choice that day, a crime that is punishable by the death penalty. 12 jurors unanimously voted for the death penalty. That is what was fair, and Biden took that away from us. A senile, old, incompetent man took that away from our family. Justice.
Good for you. Good for you, girl. I was going to say something else. I would be furious too, and I would be screaming at the rooftops. I wouldn't even care. So I'm going to help these families by yelling it from my channels. Okay, what was I going to say? Oh, God, I should have just paused it. Shit, I don't know. So I got a bunch of them queued up. Let's do this.
A killer sentenced to death in Buncombe County has his sentence commuted by President Biden. 30 years ago, Richard Allen Jackson murdered Karen Stiles.
Okay, this is what I was going to say. That just happened to this family, and that's why they're so emotional, was 2017. 2017. Never mind. I'm just going to shut up.
While she was out for a jog in the Bent Creek area. Jackson was one of 37 death row inmates to have their sentences lessened to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Tonight, News 13's Justin Berger with more from the president and a look back to the shocking decades-old case.
A decade.
22-year-old Karen Stiles disappeared Halloween morning 1994 in the Bent Creek area of the Pisgah National Forest. She was going for a run.
I'm ready to cry. I'm really scared. We've had runners training here for years, as long as I've been involved in coaching. We've never had anything like this.
Stiles' high school coach stunned, like countless others, searching for the missing Candler woman for weeks. 25 days later, her body was found. She was duct taped to a tree and raped, and shot once in the head.
Oh, my God.
When she was found, she was still duct taped to the tree.
I challenge each one of you to help us do Karen's work.
God.
She wanted to work with troubled children. It's going to take a lot of shoes to fill Karen's feet.
Richard Allen Jackson was convicted of kidnapping, raping, and murdering Stiles in 2001. The sentence was upheld in 2022. Monday, President Joe Biden commuted Jackson's sentence along with 36 others, saying this decision is consistent with the moratorium his administration has imposed on federal executions outside of terrorism and hate-motivated mass murder. He goes on, quote, I condemn these murderers, grieve for the victims of their despicable acts, and ache.
Oh, shut up. Let's see what this guy has to say. We're going to speed it up.
Have is that justice has been served. The death penalty was enforced by a jury. Why should the president put his thumb on the scale of justice?
Justin Berger, News
Who
13.
does he think he is? Okay, let's go to this guy. You know what? I just thought of something. Don't you think, okay, the president has power, right? He shouldn't have that much power where he could do shit like this. It should have to go through what is it? Congress, the House, whatever it may be.
Hi, everybody. everybody, I'm Brittany Lewis of 40 prisoners on federal death row. So these prisoners will now serve a life sentence without the possibility of parole. This impacts your community. Two now former death row inmates are from the St. Lucie area. So first, to start off the conversation, can you talk about the case, how it impacted you?
Okay, let me tell you something. This is one pissed off sheriff. Okay, this is Florida. Florida has almost 300 people on death row in the state. So this should be interesting. Okay, in Florida. And believe me, these Florida sheriffs will fight. I have a feeling.
Your community, and the details are pretty grisly.
Yeah, this goes back to 2006. You know, we had a family. The father was alleged to be involved in the drug trade, and this was an organization that was also, you know, in the drug trade. And they literally shot this family on the side of the turnpike so everybody could see. You know, hundreds of thousands of cars drive through the turnpike. You know, they were left there for dead. To set an example of, you know, and we're talking about a 3-year-old and a 4-year-old that were shot multiple times. You know, the father was also shot in the groin. I mean, this was like the most heinous crime that we've seen in our community.
And the commutation came today. Did this come as a complete surprise to you? Did you know this was coming? What did that look like?
No, nobody saw this coming. You know, a jury of their peers sat through testimony and ultimately decided that they deserve to die. I believe that. Our community believes that. And for Joe Biden at the stroke of a pen to commute that is just, you know, it's insane.
I want to read part of President Biden's statement here when he was saying that he was commuting 37 out of these 40 sentences. He said this in part, quote, "Make no mistake, I condemn these murders, grieve for the victims of their despicable acts, and ache for all the families who have suffered unimaginable and irreparable loss." Then he added this, quote, "But guided by my conscience and my experience as a public defender, chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee, vice president, and now president, I am more convinced than ever that we must stop the use of the death penalty at the federal level." What do you think of his statement?
So stop it. He didn't do that. He chose to leave a few people on death row. So if his policy and his stance was I'm against the death penalty and he commuted everybody, great. That's your right. That's the woke ideology that he has. That's not our ideology. He didn't do that. He didn't even do what he said he did in there. If you go back to that, we can read another quote that he put in there that's just going to make your mind. On the first page, he believes that the Americans must stop the use of the death penalty at the federal level, except in cases of terrorism and hate-motivated mass murders. So it's a double-edged sword. You know, you can't have it one way and not the other.
Let's talk about that, because he did leave 3 people off, and those are the people responsible for the Tree of Life synagogue shooting, the Boston Marathon bombing, and the Charleston church shooting. So logistically, if he's saying that he doesn't believe in the death penalty, that shouldn't be used at the federal level, why not commute everyone?
There you go. I mean, you said it yourself. You know, if that's just again, this goes right back to a woke ideology that 77 million Americans didn't want, and that's why come January 20th, the handcuffs are coming off law enforcement, the handcuffs are coming off prosecutors. They're going back on the criminals where they belong, and we're going to see the change that's much needed. And unfortunately, I'm sure there's going to be a lot more destruction from the Biden-Harris administration before they're out. You know, January 20th. So it's just terrible that these families, especially, they chose to do this right before Christmas. I mean, they're sitting around the Christmas table. I saw you not yet. They're sitting around the Christmas tree as a family, and they have to now remember this. You know, just be reminded that, you know, those pieces of shit that went after and killed these little innocent children. Now,
yeah, you know what? And he makes a good point. Instead of the family, you know, like with me, you know, I'm gonna have some sadness because my mom ain't here, but I'm gonna think of happy memories. You know what I mean? The happy stuff. Now these families aren't gonna get to, you know, remember the happy things. They're going to go right back to when this all happened for them. This is so sad. And when you mess with kids, like he's talking about that crime, this sheriff here with the 3 and 4-year-old that got shot, and their bodies were left for, like you said, thousands of cars to see, and the dad was shot in the groin. That's gross.
Now are going to be another Christmas for them to breathe, another Christmas for them to go out and, you know, and I'm sure they're just going to send more frivolous motions in to now get their sentence commuted down even lower. But again, if anyone deserves to die, you know, we have a personal connection with these 2 individuals. It's those 2 individuals that committed those heinous crimes. I don't even want to say their name. This isn't a third world country where, you know, there's bodies hanging from the bridges to send a message to criminal organizations that they're tough on, that they're, you know, to be feared. This is America, and this sort of behavior should never be tolerated. The citizens in our community, a jury of their peers, said they deserve to die for their actions, and that's exactly what should have happened.
Have you spoken to the Escobedo family? Because as you noted, we're 2 days from Christmas. We're very close to all holidays here. It is the holiday season, and this is reopening over a decade-long wound. What has their reaction been if you spoke to them?
I haven't spoken to them, but if you're watching, my heart and prayers are with you. I'm so sorry that this administration failed you, failed your family, failed the 2 innocent children that got caught in the mix of this. And I just, from the men and women of the sheriff's office, the dedicated detectives that put so much time and effort into bringing justice to you, that unfortunately justice won't be served. And I'm sorry for that. And there's no words can describe the pain that you're feeling, and no word can describe the actions that this administration took to take that justice away from you. And I apologize.
To your knowledge, do you know if the Biden administration has reached out to them, or after this news was announced, has the DOJ, has the White House, has anyone reached out to you?
No one's reached out to us. We found out on social media like everybody else. I woke up this morning and I saw that, and I mean, it's a very emotional post that I put out there, but it's a message that our community needs to know, that our community spoke back in 2006. They said that the actions of these two individuals were heinous, and they deserve to be put to death for this. And the jury of their peers decided that their fate. This wasn't the government deciding their fate. This was a jury of their peers. And to have at a stroke of a pen an administration whose woke ideology is, I don't believe in the death sentence, but just not for these people, only for those people.
Yeah,
do what you say and say what you mean. Just the coward way out. And I'm sure there's going to be a lot more issues that are going to just bring light or shed light to what's happening at our federal level with this current administration.
I can hear how mad you are, and I want to read in part your Facebook post in a little bit, but would you be less mad, do you think, or would you understand it more if he commuted all 40 people sitting on federal death row?
No.
I believe in the death penalty. So I by no means would I ever be happy of anybody, or not happy. I would ever be, cheerful that somebody didn't get the sentence they deserved. But it totally contradicts what he says. Does the guy even know what he's saying? Think about that for a second. In one sentence,
Yeah.
I don't believe in the death.
And that's what I was trying to tell you people. My opinion, if you do anything to kids like this, the same should be done to you. Okay, these are my feelings, though. And I'm going to be honest. Sometimes I think about the death penalty, but there's certain cases that it's needed. Okay? Not every case, certain cases. I mean, come on. That one lady was duct taped to a tree naked, found there 25 days later. That is gross.
Death penalty. I want to perform. Why didn't you do legislation the 4 years you were there, or the 40 years that you were in politics to eliminate the death penalty? No, you didn't. You chose to swipe a pen and commute a certain amount of people. Not everybody. There's still 3 people on there. They're sent. So if you truly believe in what you say and do, then you would have commuted everybody. And I could respect you more for that, because that's your authority to do so. But the switcheroo is just, I mean, it makes no sense what this guy says when he puts it out there.
Sheriff, you penned a really heartfelt message on Facebook this morning, and in part you asked this question: where's the justice to the Escobedo family that was murdered in cold blood? You don't think life without the possibility of parole is justice here. So, I mean, what was your reaction when you woke up to this morning?
I felt like I was punched in the stomach. I really felt for the family of the victims. I really felt that, how do you find that out? On the day before Christmas Eve, when families are coming together, it's real difficult, and it's just a shame that this current administration doesn't know what they're doing. On one hand, they disagree with policies and they commute sentences, but there's a lot more actions to this. What does that tell to the criminals? That I'm going to go out there and I'm going to murder a family, and I'm going to shoot the husband in the genitalia. I'm going to shoot the wife 3 times in the head. I'm going to shoot a 4-year-old kid 6 times, a 3-year-old kid 3 times.
What?
Leave them out there on the side of the road so that.
Oh my God! Do you hear that? Did you hear how many times he shot that little baby? 6 times? A 3-year-old? I mean, just shooting anybody, period. But oh my God.
Hundreds of thousands of motorists driving down the Florida Turnpike, one of our busiest turnpikes, could see this. I mean, this is just insane.
Oh my God, it was wild.
The details really are just heartbreaking, especially when it involves young children. What has been the reaction from your community this morning and this afternoon from the news?
The news has been reporting on this, in part from the statement that I put out there. And then a few hours later, the White House posts on their page that like they were proud that they commuted these sentences, that they're not holding criminals accountable, that they're not holding for the will of the people that sentenced this isn't like the government saying you're under arrest, you're innocent until proven guilty. No, this is a jury of their peers, not only in our case, but in other cases throughout the nation where a jury said they deserve to die for what they did. And at a stroke of a pen, the Biden-Harris administration just completely changes it. And for whatever reasons, it isn't because they don't believe in the death penalty, because if they truly believe in the death penalty, they would have eliminated it for everybody. It's their judgment, which their lack of judgment.
Sheriff, you're not mincing words here. I hear how frustrated you are. My final question to you would be, what is your message to President Biden, the Biden administration? Because they didn't reach out to you. What do you have to say to them?
I'm not going to waste my breath trying to reach a message to them. And if I did send a message to them, they probably wouldn't understand it. Our ideology is so different. My message is to the victims. I apologize if this happened. I'm so sorry what you're going through. If there's anything that we can do here at the sheriff's office to help you through this tough time, which is reopened the wounds of these heinous actions, I apologize to our citizens who had faith in the federal government to uphold the death sentence, which they did. And just know January 20th, help is on the way, and we're going to see the pendulum swing and go back towards law and order. And these ideologies, if you want to change it, go through legislation, change legislation.
Right.
Let it be the will of the people, not just the stroke of a pen.
That's right.
Now to a story Target 8 has been covering for decades. The only Michigan man on death row will no longer face execution after President Joe Biden commuted the death sentences of more than 36 federal prisoners.
Instead, Marvin Gabriel of Newaygo County, who killed a woman to keep her from testifying against him in a rape case, will spend the rest of his life in prison.
Target 8 investigator Ken Kolker has covered this case since it broke in 1997. He spoke today with the victim's father.
It was in 2002 in Grand Rapids where a federal jury sentenced Marvin Gabriel to death in the 1997 murder of Rachel Timmerman. Her father says he had prepared himself to witness the execution.
We thought the timing was despicable.
How so?
We felt that President Biden could have waited until after the holidays.
Though he says he's not opposed to the commutation itself. Rachel Timmerman's father, Tim Timmerman, says the U.S. Attorney's Office in Grand Rapids called him Sunday night to tell him that Biden had commuted Gabriel's death sentence, which means Gabriel will serve life with no chance of freedom.
I offered to speak with you today because I'm a family of a victim. And I think President Biden offered a Christmas gift to the perpetrators of murder.
That's right.
But he offered only pain to the victims of the families of the families of the victims.
Biden says the commutations were consistent with his administration's moratorium on federal executions in cases other than terrorism and hate-motivated mass murder. He issued the commutations just weeks before President-elect Donald Trump, an outspoken proponent of expanding capital punishment, takes office. Can you imagine anyone who deserves it more than Marvin Gabriel?
No one, you couldn't imagine someone that deserved it more than Mr. Gabriel. He killed at least 5 people. Where's the justice in just giving him a prison bed to die comfortably in?
Gabriel was convicted of killing Timmerman in 1997, throwing her into a lake weighted down and alive to keep her from testifying against him in a rape trial. Her body surfaced in Oxford Lake in the Manistee National Forest, giving the federal government jurisdiction. The Michigan Constitution banned the death penalty in 1847. The body of Rachel's 11-month-old daughter, Shannon Verhaeghe, was never recovered, despite repeated searches of the lake.
God.
From the get-go, we offered...
Oh, my God. There was a baby. And the body was never recovered. Did he read into any of these cases?
To trade the death penalty for information regarding my granddaughter. We offered that from the very get-go. Gabriel was unwilling to tell us what he did with Shannon. So that's always remained an open hole in our heart. I think we've accepted that we're not going to see Shannon again. We've accepted that. So that bargaining chip is really irrelevant. So, no.
Do you think she's in that lake?
That would be my best guess. Yeah. Absolutely.
Timmerman, who co-authored a book on the case, said he had accepted, even before the commutation, that Gabriel would likely die a natural death in prison. Gabriel is now 71.
Actually, I never really felt that Gabriel would be put to death by the federal government. We felt that the best case, he would be locked in a very small cage and not allowed to hurt anyone else. That was our best case scenario.
Rachel would be 46, Shannon 28, probably spending Christmas at Grandpa's home in northern Kent County.
It's just crazy. It's hard to believe that many years have gone past and it's still an open wound.
Gabriel is serving his sentence at the Medical Center for Federal Prisoners in Springfield, Missouri. In Grand Rapids, I'm Target 8 investigator Ken Kolker.
President Joe Biden commuted the sentences of 37 death row inmates, giving them life in prison instead. Among those prisoners, Daryl Lawrence, who killed Columbus police officer Brian Hurst during an attempted bank robbery in January of 2005. Now, reaction is pouring in from those who prosecuted the case and those who knew Officer Hurst and his family. NBC4's Isabel Cleary spoke with some of them today. So, Isabel, what are they telling you about this?
Jen Sierra, outrageous and harmful were just some of the words people I spoke with used to describe the decision to commute Lawrence's sentence. I spoke with Jim Gilbert, a career law enforcement officer who was in the academy with Officer Hurst. Even 20 years later, this news has an impact.
He was a jokester. He really enjoyed his friendship with all the police officers he worked with.
Chief Deputy Jim Gilbert is retired from the Columbus Division of Police and is now with the Franklin County Sheriff's Office. To this day, he carries this reminder of his friend.
When Brian was in the bank that day, he thought he was there to protect the citizens of that bank. His final gasp, according to the witnesses, was holding his firearm up towards the door, making sure that he didn't come back in a second time.
Gilbert is close with Hurst's parents and shares they're frustrated and upset. They learned that Lawrence's sentence was commuted after a call from the former Franklin County prosecutor who helped prosecute the case.
I believe that's as outrageous as the unwise decision to pardon the man in the first place. Well, I'm not against pardon. In fact, I think it's a good thing. when properly exercised. Just here, I think it was a blatant disregard of the procedures and a blatant disregard of the families of victims.
David DeVillers also helped prosecute the case. At the time, he was the assistant United States attorney. He's also been speaking with Hearst's family.
His family, I know this, they went through months of this trial, and then ending up with this years later, it's devastating to a lot of them.
Harry Trombitis is a retired FBI agent who worked the case. Lawrence confessed to him.
In my humble opinion, if you kill a law enforcement officer, you deserve the maximum penalty. If we can't take care of our officers, men and women who serve us and put their lives at risk each and every day for us, it's very, very disappointing.
The trial counsel for Daryl Lawrence sent NBC4 a statement saying in part, quote, "We applaud the president's decision to commute Daryl Lawrence's death sentence to life without parole.
Wow.
And the death penalty has never been found to be a deterrent and is disproportionately used against African Americans."
Okay.
The local police union also released a statement saying in part, quote,
They got to stop that. I don't like that. I don't like that when they use that.
commutation of Lawrence's sentence disregards the gravity of his crime and diminishes accountability for those who target the brave men and women who serve in uniform. In a statement, President Biden said these commutations are consistent with the moratorium his administration has imposed on federal executions. Sierra.
Isabel, thank you.
President Joe Biden is commuting the sentences of 37 of the 40 people on federal death row, converting their death sentences to life in prison. The commutations include 2 San Fernando Valley men convicted in 2007 of kidnapping for ransom and then murder.
Our Mary Beth McDade is live in the KTLA 5 News Center with latest reactions. Mary Beth.
Yes, Mike and Chair, Biden commuted all but 3 death sentences, and among those commuted were 2 San Fernando Valley businessmen who were also serial killers. From child murderers to drug traffickers, President Joe Biden commuted the sentences of 37 of the 40 inmates on federal death row. They'll now face life in prison without the possibility of parole instead of the death penalty.
I think President Biden ran in part on a platform of abolishing the death penalty. I think this is a moral imperative for him.
Among those whose sentences were commuted were 2 San Fernando Valley businessmen who were found guilty in a ruthless kidnapping for ransom scheme. Yuri Mikkel and Yuri Jessica Domovitz abducted, held hostage, and killed 5 victims between 2001 and 2002.
These are monsters who cannot be rehabilitated. And for the last over 20 years, hoping for some kind of justice with the death penalty.
Jenny Silver's father, real estate developer Myra Muscatel, was one of their victims. She says they lured him to a fake business meeting in October of 2001.
One of the monsters hit him over the head with a gun. And then they taped him to a chair for days where he was tortured, and they were trying to get money.
She says after days of torture, they murdered him by duct taping a plastic bag over his head and kneeling on his chest until he died. Jenny tells us she can't stop crying over what Biden has done to her family.
They will get to go on with the rest of their lives without any kind of fear of being put to death, while the victims and the victims' families will continue to be punished.
President Joe Biden said in a statement he condemns their despicable acts, but guided by my conscience, we must stop the use of the death penalty at the federal level. While Biden paused federal executions in 2021, under Donald Trump's first administration, 13 people were executed for their crime. Trump's office released a statement saying, in part, these are among the worst killers in the world, and this abhorrent decision by Joe Biden is a slap in the face to the victims, their families, and their loved ones. President Trump stands for the rule of law, which will return when he is back in the White House. 3 remain on death row. Zohar Tsarnaev, the 2013 Boston Marathon bomber, Robert Bowers, who murdered 11 people in a Pittsburgh synagogue in 2018, and Dylan Roof, who shot and killed 9 people at a Charleston AME church in 2015.
He certainly did carve out the 3 that frankly garnered the most headlines. And the president is still a political position, and I think he's still aware of potential political blowback.
I spoke with family members of 2 of the San Fernando Valley men's other victims.
Okay, like the very first interview, that guy, he said it best. Or no, it was the sheriff. I'm sorry. The sheriff said if this was a moral thing for him or whatever, then all 40 of them should have been commuted. Biden administration is being messy, and they're doing this on purpose, and they don't give a shit about anything but themselves.
Victims, and they too are very upset by Biden's actions. For now, reporting live here in News Center, Mary Beth McDade. We'll send it back to you guys in the studio.
We are less than a month away from Donald Trump becoming president for the second time, and as President Joe Biden's term comes to an end, he's commuted the sentences of federal death row inmates. Good Monday evening, and thanks for joining us. I'm Mike McDaniel. One of those inmates is from Louisiana. Back in 1996, former police officer Lynn Davis ordered a hitman to kill a New Orleans mother. Tonight, our Lily Cummings hears from her family about the change in his sentence.
30 years ago, Kim Groves was murdered outside of her lower Ninth Ward home. The 32-year-old mother of 3 had filed a brutality complaint against then NOPD officer Lynn Davis. Groves' complaint detailed watching Davis beat a young man. Davis was alerted to the complaint by another cop and enlisted a hitman to kill her. Davis was later implicated by an FBI narcotics investigation that linked Davis to Groves' murder and revealed his efforts to shield the hitman, Paul Cool Hardy, and his string of drug crimes. In 1996, Davis was sentenced to death. Fast forward to 2024, in his final days in office, President Joe Biden commuted 37 of 40 federal death row prisoners, including Davis. Now Davis will spend life in prison without parole. Grove's son Corey said to WWL Louisiana in a statement, "My family has been living with the nightmare of Lynn Davis for over 30 years. I have always wanted him to spend the rest of his life in prison and have to wake up every morning and think about what he did when he took our mother from us." Although Biden says he condemns the murderers and grieves for the victims, he promised to abolish the federal death penalty, and this is his most dramatic step yet. Meanwhile, Louisiana Attorney General Liz Muriel responded to Davis's clemency, saying, "We can't trust the feds to get justice for victims of heinous crimes, so it's long past time for the state to get it done." Lily Cummings, WWL Louisiana.
The president also cited the incoming administration as a reason for moving forward. President-elect Donald Trump has been a supporter of the death penalty. During his first administration, Trump carried out 13 federal executions, which were the first in nearly 2 decades. Now, 3 federal inmates are still on track to be put to death. They include Robert Bowers, who was convicted for a mass shooting at the Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh, Dylan Roof, who killed 9 people at the Mother Emanuel Baptist Church in Charleston, South Carolina, and Joe Tsarnaev, who was convicted in 2015 for carrying out the Boston Marathon bombing that killed 3 people, and then for shooting and killing an MIT police officer days later.
Right now it's 6. This Christmas will mark nearly 20 years that the family of a Columbus police officer will have to celebrate without their son. On January 6th of 2005, Officer Brian Hurst was shot to death while on special duty at an East Columbus bank. Today, President Joe Biden commuted the sentence of Hurst's killer, changing the penalty from death to life in prison with no chance of parole. Thank you for joining us tonight at 6. I'm Yolanda Harris.
You see what's going on here, in my humble opinion? Biden is going to go out as a disgrace. He really is. And to think he put in a statement, there's going to be more to come in the coming weeks.
10 TV's Kevin Landers covered this story when it happened 19 years ago, and tonight he spoke to Hurst's parents and widow, and he shares their story tonight.
It was in this federal courthouse where a jury sentenced Daryl Lawrence to death for the murder of Officer Brian Hurst. Hurst's family told me they're shocked to learn President Biden decided to overturn the jury's decision.
I cannot speak strong enough about how absolutely devastating this is to think that someone can take the legal system and just basically say it doesn't matter.
The family of former Columbus police officer Brian Hurst are trying to make sense of President Joe Biden's decision to commute the death sentence of their son's killer to life in prison.
I'm one of the few Republicans that actually understood when he pardoned his own son, and him being a parent. I'm just shocked that he would be so willing to forgive someone who murdered my son.
The jury convict him, but we also had the appellate court uphold the conviction. And
see, this is so sad. I sure hope that he gets to watch all these families cry and how hurt they are, how angry they are.
That in itself tells you that this was the way things are supposed to work.
Hurst was working special duty at this Fifth Third Bank in East Columbus on January 6, 2005, when serial bank robber Daryl Lawrence came in to rob it. The two exchanged gunfire, and Officer Hurst was killed. He was 33 years old. He left behind a wife and a 6-month-old daughter. His widow sent us a statement. "My daughter and I are disappointed in the president's decision, not only to commute Lawrence's sentence, but also many of the other inmates who committed unspeakable crimes, including the murder of children. It undermines the entire justice system. As Lawrence was convicted and sentenced by a jury, there was never a question of guilt."
How do you want people to remember your son?
Well, with all the bad press policemen get nowadays, I just want them to remember that Brian was one of the good ones, and that he was credited with saving countless lives that day in the bank.
Dante Oliverio was Hurst's partner, and he told the Washington Post he supports the president's decision. He said, "Putting to death the person who killed my police partner and best friend would have brought me no peace." Kevin Landers, 10 TV News.
Who cares?
Thank you, Kevin.
Who cares?
Well, the local
Who cares what his partner thinks? What matters is what the family feels.
Fraternal Order of Police says they're disappointed and outraged at President Biden's decision. FOP President Brian Steele said Mr. Biden's decision is an inexcusable affront to the memory of Officer Brian Hurst and the law enforcement community as a whole.
How was supposed to? Oh, wait a minute. Let's see what else. That was just a few of them, people. There was another one. Where is it? I'm looking for something. Oh, this is nice to see. Okay, on a lighter note, I want to show this. On a lighter note, this is funny. Migrant family stopped from hopping border in Texas. You guys, look at. Hey, Texas took everything into their own hands, and I love it. I'm here for it all day long. Wow. I wouldn't have even done that for him. Oh, leave the damn sweater there.
Oh no.
Okay. I'm sorry, that was beautiful for me to see. Okay, because you know what? Come into our country, but come in the right way. Just saying. I had a cousin. Okay, actually, I got to say it's a cousin's wife that came from another country, and it took forever and ever. You won't believe the things that she had to do, but you know that was decades ago. But yeah, so Biden sucks, okay? And prepare yourself, people. There's going to be more of this to come. He said it himself in a statement on the White House Briefing News. But I want to wish everybody Merry Christmas, New Year, or New Year's Eve, Christmas Eve, New Year's Eve. God, I'm such a dork. And I want to thank you, sis. I want to thank you, Misty, for being here. And I'm going to go for now. Goodbye. Merry Christmas.